So hi everybody, I hope you're doing well. By the way, do you like the new setup? Is it a bit bland? Not really sure yet. Anyway, it's Wednesday night. I was too tired to go to the gym and I was settling down to watch Boston Legal, and I said to myself, wait a second, I could discuss this with my law heroes, and that's exactly what I'm doing this evening. So Boston Legal is and has been one of the major inspiring factors in my legal career, and so much so that I would say a lot of the characters in that informed my legal personality. And yeah, this evening I put together a few points. I wrote out a few points I wanted to make about Boston Legal, because I think if you haven't watched it and you're an aspiring lawyer, or even whoever you are, you might enjoy it. I think there'll never be another Boston Legal. I watch Suits. I watch Ally McBeal. I'm not going to watch the Suits spin-off, but I've heard recently that the main actor, the guy who played Harvey Specter, he essentially apologized to law students for his portrayal of a lawyer, which I thought was very funny. And yeah, I just don't see like William Shatner, who plays Jenny Crane. I don't see him doing that at all, because I think their portrayal of law is far more authentic. I think it's closer to what I know to be law firm law. And like, okay, you're not going to get a Jenny Crane every day of the week, but there's a few Allens, there's a few Pauls, and definitely we all know Paul. I'll go through all these people in a minute. There's definitely a few Larrys I've come across in my time, and 100% like the two younger ones, Tara and who was the other one? I don't know, she got cut out anyway. She was Alan's like love interest in the first few. Oh, and Brad, of course. Everyone knows a Brad. So yeah, I'm going to go down through what I think you can learn from it. And yeah, what I think is relevant. What I have to say is that it kind of bothers me. It bothered me until Shirley Schmidt, how female lawyers were portrayed. Like, kind of like, if you think of Laurie's character, okay, so she's like very diligent, really highly strung, like basically has a stick up her ass. I think she won't have a romantic relationship in the office with Brad when he approaches her. She's so critical. You can tell she's very critical of herself, even though we don't hear that dialogue. We can tell she's critical of herself, just the way she acts around other people. Like, she's an amazing lawyer, but she definitely doesn't have that confidence. Like, her brow is always furrowed, and she always looks quite concerned, and you don't get the ease from her that you get from Tara. Like, Tara's way more, I would say, in her feminine. She's way more in her body. She's way more relaxed. I think her self-identity and her self-concept are much stronger than Laurie's. And then we have Shirley, who just blows them all out of the water, is like the most incredible alpha female, can body anyone at court, is just well able for all of them. And I think the viewer is left needing somebody like a female like Shirley after the first season, because Shirley comes in season 2, and it's so refreshing to see like the men kind of tremble in her wake, given her confidence and given her command on language, and how she has these fast quips and remarks. It's perfect. And then when it comes to the men, I definitely remember like the very first time I watched it, kind of being almost very jealous, I would say, of Denny and Alan's relaxed approach to work. Like, nothing seems to faze them. If something goes wrong in work, they have a cigar, they have a glass of whiskey, they laugh at it. They have a laugh about it in the evening time, whereas like the women, they seem to bottle it up, like they go for a beer on their own or they go with their other half and it's like a big thing. Whereas yeah, like I suppose like that Shakespeare thing, like all the world's a tragedy, like if you don't see it as a tragedy, you see it as a comedy. I feel like they have really grasped that concept of just laughing at life, and it's really nice, and it like really draws the viewer in and their relationship, and like how they every evening convene on the balcony, no matter what's happened during their day, they come together, they have their glass of whiskey, they have their cigar. It's like a male bonding moment that I think a lot of women miss out on, in that it's just that kind of, I don't know if you would ever see two women sit down and just like not be rabbiting on, like, and I'm accusing myself of this as well. They sit there in just this consummate kind of silence, and they contemplate the world in such a mindful way that you're so drawn into the two of them. And it, like, their relationship, Denny and Alan's relationship, you can see that it just fosters that relaxed nature, because Denny knows that Alan looks up to him and Alan knows that Denny really loves him. So it's just really, really nice. Yeah, and it's I've written down here that just that everything will work out. You know, that's really what it is. So yeah, the first thing I kind of like pulled out was like pulling the rabbit out of the hat. So like, if I think it's in the first season, I think it's like really early on, where there's a little black girl whose mom is annoyed that she didn't get the role of Annie, and they take it as like a discrimination case. And you know, the arguments are going back and forth, you know, whether this even is a discrimination case. Maybe the child's just not talented enough to play the role of Annie, and then they get her to sing in court, and it's like it's a wonderful episode. But they bring in a black reverend who speaks about like how this is an anti-black sentiment, that, you know, first it's this little girl not getting the role of Annie, and then it's going to spill out into other things, into other areas of life. And he basically just brings the house down, and it turns out that he's been bribed by Alan to give this speech to sway the judge. It's a civil matter, and they have a settlement. So the Broadway people, or whoever it is, in order to avoid this like negative press from this reverend, they settle and they give her like the understudy role. I think that's what actually happens. Long story short, the trick from Alan was pulling the rabbit out of the hat, and that was the reverend, because you need, sometimes when a case is going against you, you need a rabbit. You need something to, you know, change tack. You need something to change the dynamic of the argument, and that's what he uses. And like Sally, sorry, that's her name, Sally uses that as well when she is I think she's defending a man who stole a purse,